Hey everybody, it's Mike Young, lifestyle nutritionist with aPlantBasedDiet.org. Welcome to chapter 42 of the book, and this one is just titled The Food. So I know I've said certain chapters are so important, it's like the most important one you got to listen to in the book, but this is truly it. It's all about the food. Most of people's health issues are because of the food. My wife Denise and I have been making all kinds of videos. Actually, I've mentioned Green Fair Organic Cafe earlier in this book with them because they are the only ones who are doing cooked food right. But let's get right into it. Let's talk about the food. What's so important about it? Why do you have to be so specific? And most importantly, what is so specific that you have to do if you expect to have a lifespan that's double of what the average person? Well, first of all, I've got the list here, so I'm going to be kind of consulting with this. Let me first mention that, at least at this point in time, when I'm recording this video, in July of 2022, I do believe, and it's shown in our food pyramid actually, that there are certain things that you should have more of and certain things that you should have less. And the cooking process and eating prepared foods, which almost all people are raised in, all right, they're raised in that environment, is not optimal. It can be done right, and that's what we're going to get into in this channel, or in this chapter. Our whole channel is about food, but this chapter is specifically how do you do cooked food right. But I think if you eat organic, meaning no chemicals, not grown in chemicals, raw fruits and vegetables, a variety of those for correct nutrition, that's probably the best way to go at this point in time when I'm recording this video. And that may never change, because it may be very well that humans were designed to eat these types of plants. And you know, if you're a religious person, you probably already know that. If you talk about the Garden of Eden. So let's get into the cooked food though, because almost everybody is going to eat mostly cooked food. And like I said, I wish that you didn't. I wish you would eat tons of raw foods because they're full of water and fiber, and of course organic foods. But if you decide you're going to eat your cooked food, you have to do it just a certain way. All right. Now, first of all, it's got to be minimally processed. Processing is I'd say the best way to think about processing food is that you are taking things out of the food that are supposed to be in there. A lot of times if you're just blending or making a smoothie or something, it's not so bad. But the minute you start extracting things, that's where the problems come in. And you are removing the phytonutrients or the regular nutrients, and the fiber usually is what's happening. So it's got to be minimally processed. Next thing is fully organic. And we don't mean just fully organic because USDA puts their stamp of approval on it. We're talking about grown without chemicals, prepared without chemicals, on a plate or whatever bowl that's not full of chemicals, all this kind of stuff. Very, very important stuff. You've got to make sure that you figure all this out, because all of this plays a role in terms of what your health is going to be. All right, then you can look at our current certification, which I'd say is a mid-level certification. It's called Certified Healthy Vegan Food. And that has a couple different things. Number one is you have to have real whole plant fiber in it. It has to have no animal products, no oil or nothing with oil or as an added ingredient into it, and no salt added to it, and no alcohol. So it's an important stepping stone. It's a mid-grade. Like I said, we're going to have another nonprofit, which we launched 2.5 years ago, which will have an even better standard, which will fit this whole definition of this whole chapter, probably. We're still developing it, but that's the mid-grade. So it's got to at least meet that. All right, let me go through my list. What is next? Well, I mentioned a little bit there in the certification where you cannot add any oil or salt, but you also should not add any processed sugar. That's another thing. It may not be quite as important in terms of our understanding of things at this point in time in 2022, but if you're going to do sugar, you can do something like maple syrup or agave, or make a date paste, something like that. Of course, no animal products ever. Like I said, our standard has that. And of course, if you're going to double your lifespan, animal products are acid forming. They're full of generally saturated fat. They're full of cholesterol. They don't have any fiber. There's no reason to have animal products at all if you expect to optimize your health. All right, now you should also prepare your food in a fully organic environment, meaning you shouldn't spray Windex or some other bleach cleaner or whatever it is on your surface of that you're going to prepare your food and then prepare your food on. I mean, I know that I'm kind of weird. When I wash my dishes and stuff after I'm done, I don't even use dish soap. I just clean it with hot water. Hot water is actually one of the best cleaners. So keep all this in mind. If you want to live and double your lifespan, you're going to have to adopt some new habits like this. All right, another thing is two things: low caloric density and low percentage of calories from fat. Now, even if you followed everything else I just said up to this point in time, you could eat a diet full of nuts, seeds, and avocados, and for fruit, you could be eating nothing but durian. And if you do, you're going to have a very, very high percentage of calories from fat. And we already know, I can't remember if we've gone over it yet in this book or not, but it will be in one of the future chapters about type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is caused by eating too high of a percentage of calories from fat. So even if you're just eating non-processed organic plant foods, you can still line up with it. So don't do that. The other thing is low caloric density. That's another reason why you want to have minimally processed foods, because like I said, when you process foods, generally the harmful parts, you're not just spinning into a blender, you're extracting. You're usually extracting the nutrients, and then you get oil, which is all fat, or you're extracting fiber from the foods, and then you get a high caloric density is what happens, because fiber has very low calorie density. But the minute you start to remove that, your body was designed for fiber, you start to run into problems. Another thing, cooking. Like I said, cooking is less than ideal. At least I truly believe that at this point in time. It should be on your list to eat as many raw foods as possible, organically grown. Do this as much as you can during the course of the day. But if you have to cook, you just want to lightly cook. That's the takeaway here. And if you ever go to a restaurant or have someone else prepare your food, you got to ask a lot of questions. But the rule of thumb is never cook anything above 350 degrees, because when you do, of course, not only just the cooking process will disturb the enzymes in the food, but you will also form acrylamide, which is a known carcinogen, causes cancer in humans. You don't want that. Okay, so you've got to cook below 350 degrees. All right, another thing is, just in general, if you're following along with everything I'm saying up to this point in this chapter, you're going to be eating food that's a low glycemic index, meaning it's not going to spike your blood sugars. Because with high glycemic foods, which is generally processed foods, where you have things that are highly, highly refined and processed, a lot of the good stuff taken out, like I said, like the fiber and the nutrients, well, that's going to go right into your bloodstream almost immediately. It's going to tax your pancreas. It's going to spike your energy, and then you're going to crash later on, like a food coma. And of course, this is a big problem with attention deficit disorder, whether it's adults or in kids, or ADHD. Your life is going to be not so fun, okay, if you eat foods that have a high glycemic index. So you want to keep it low. You want to keep to the foods that I am talking about here. And by the way, our nonprofit has a logo, and we're going to get into that in the next chapter, so hang around for that. I'm going to show you visually what this means. Zero alcohol contains zero alcohol. Alcohol is a known carcinogen. It's going to shorten your lifespan. It's, you hear people all the time with liver cancer, all kinds of weird cancers they can't figure out. Alcohol is an amazing cleaner. It will kill all the bacteria. It also will kill off your gut bacteria. The fiber will rebuild it. The alcohol will destroy it. The processed sugar will destroy it. High fat foods will destroy it. Many things like that. So this is why I'm telling you these things. This is why I'm being very, very specific on the foods, because your body needs this. It really does. All right, last item on the list, short from a few other things I'm going to say, is whole grains. If you're cooking foods, if you're eating prepared foods, feel free to enjoy rice if you want, or pasta. I mean, I do, although it's less and less of a portion of my diet as time goes on. But make sure it's organic and make sure it's whole grain. Whole grain pasta, whole wheat. A lot of times with celiac disease, or not necessarily celiac disease full blown, but if you have a gluten sensitivity, it's because the grains are not organic. And if they're not whole wheat, you're also eating a higher percentage of gluten in the food, because the wheat husk, the part of that that's not refined, make something more of it if it's whole wheat, if you hadn't thought about that before. The same with rice, go with brown rice and brown pastas. And outside of that, that's about it. So like I said, replay this chapter, play it over and over again. It's not that difficult, but if you think about it, you think about how the average American eats, you're probably going to have to throw away most of the things in your house. That's what I suggest that you do. If you are trying to meet this new standard, which I highly recommend that you do, the best way to do it is to get everything out of your house that you're not going to eat, because you're going to be tempted otherwise. And we don't want that, because that's going to be a regression and it's not good. So the quicker you can get away from the old ways of eating, the better. And the quicker you can adopt this, the better. Now stay tuned for the next chapter. Like I said, we're going to go over the nonprofit logo. But until then, thanks so much for watching. If you got some value out of this, which hopefully you did, because this is the core. This is the core of everything I've been talking about here. And that's why I was looking at my phone all the time. So holding my phone in my hand. I didn't want to miss anything. Let me know in the comments too what you think. You know, if you've tried a different diet, how many years young are you? You know, how long do you think you're going to live? What are the trade-offs here? You know, have you thought about this cooked versus raw thing before? Lightly cooking, low percentage of calories from fat, you know, low caloric density, you know, taking it easy with the nuts, seeds, and avocado. And by the way, if you ever buy any foods at the store, which everybody does, that have all kinds of ingredients, you got to analyze those labels. Only look at the back. Don't ever look at what says in the front of the package. You got to analyze, you got to do some calculations. It's a lot of work. We really, if you think about it, once you get to food as grown, that's the way the body is designed to eat without chemicals, and your health will flourish if you do that. So just remember that. That's the takeaway. Food is grown, or as close to it as that, but you can still enjoy. If you were raised on cooked foods like I was, different dishes, you can still enjoy almost all of those. Some people call it whole food plant-based, although it's a very loose definition with that. It doesn't really mean a whole lot. But as long as it's minimally processed, all fruits and vegetables, all organic, you don't have these other areas I'm talking about, because, you know, like I said, if it's WFPB whole food plant-based, you don't know if it has a low percentage of calories from fat. You don't know if it has, well, you know, it has no added, not supposed to have any oil, sugar, or salt, but even that has been compromised, I've seen. So be very, very careful. Be careful and you'll be successful. Play this chapter over and over again as much as you need to, and write below your comments, right where you are, right, you know, with your diet, right where you want to get to. If you have a BMI goal, whatever you have, write it in there in the comments. That'll hold you accountable when you come back and watch this again, because you're going to forget. That's the thing. This chapter is going to be played over and over again, because you're going to forget so many of the little details, and they're all important. And if I ever start to remember something that I should have put in this chapter, I'm going to put it in the comments down there below as well. So use that as a resource. So thanks again for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.